It's now official. The second overall pick in the draft by the Oklahoma City Thunder, Chet Holmgren, is going to miss the entire season due to a foot injury that he suffered on this play with LeBron during a Pro-Am. Well, there's no question, this is sad news, especially coming off such an exciting run in the Summer League. I think it has a much larger impact on the Thunder's future than a lot of people realize. So that's what I want to talk about in today's video. If you guys like the content, smash the like button, smash the subscribe button. Let's go for 4 likes on today's video, and let's get into this. Now, I know there's a lot of fear-mongering when it comes to this injury, but that's not really what I want to talk about today. Yes, you have to be concerned about any injury, and yes, foot injuries and big men don't have the best of track records, but I wouldn't be so quick to assume this is going to have some major effect on his career long-term. I also have a gut feeling that his very thin frame might play into his favor in a situation like this with a load-bearing injury, similar to what we saw with Kevin Durant coming off a torn Achilles, an injury that up until that point was deemed a prime ender. Regardless, Chet Holmgren will be back next season, and I think we should be just as excited as we were expecting to be going into this year. What I really want to talk about is how this affects the Thunder as a whole. This was an interesting year for them, as for the last 2 years, it's been a full-on tank fest, putting out terrible rosters, shutting down their top players for extended amounts of time, but it worked. In the last 2 years, they've walked away from the draft with 2 of the most promising young talents in Josh Giddey and Chet Holmgren. Eventually, though, you need to get back to a winning culture, and it felt like that was going to be this year. Now, by no means was anyone expecting them to be competing for a playoff spot. I think most still thought there was a really solid chance they'd be back at the top of the draft, but I didn't think we were going to see a blatant tank. But now with Chet going down, a guy that was projected to be a cornerstone of this team from day one, a guy coming into the season with some of the top odds to win Rookie of the Year, things might be a little different, especially considering what's in store for next year's 2023 draft. If you guys haven't heard, there is a prospect that people are already deeming one of the best we have ever seen, and that's Victor Wembanyama. Now it's clear within about 2.5 seconds of watching this kid why that's the case. He stands at somewhere around 7'4". We don't know his official height right now. When it was last reported, it was 7'1", but seeing him stand aside other players, including Chet, who's listed at 7 feet, who he towers over, it's very clear he's much taller than 7'1". Now, we've seen very few players at these insane heights have success in the league, especially in the last decade, but Wembanyama is unlike any player we've ever seen before. At this staggering height, he truly has a wing skill set that's honestly hard to believe when watching. With how well-rounded his game is, at that kind of frame, he truly has the upside to dominate the league on both ends. Because of this, we are going to see some aggressive tanking across the league. So with Chet out for the season, I think it's quite realistic the Thunder look at this and say what's another year. There's just one glaring problem with that, and that's their franchise player, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Since getting to Oklahoma City, SGA has ascended to being one of the top guards in the league. To start his career, he was a part of competitive scenarios. In his first year in the league with the Clippers, he was the starting point guard for a playoff team. In his first year with the Thunder, he shared the backcourt with Chris Paul. That season, most were expecting the Thunder to be contending for a top 5 pick in the draft. Instead, they finished with a top 5 seed in the West. After that, they traded everyone. They sent Paul to Phoenix, Schroeder to LA, Gallinari to Atlanta, and as we said, have been in a full-on tank to the point where it might be affecting SGA's time out there. There's some serious debate around the Thunder being so quick to shut down SGA with the injuries he's suffered the last couple seasons. If this era in Oklahoma City continues, I think they face a realistic possibility that SGA feels he doesn't fit the timetable they have going and requests to be moved to a team that's ready to compete, at least not compete for a top pick in the draft. Now, this isn't something I would expect to happen until the season progresses and SGA has an idea of what the Thunder intend for this season, nor do I think it's super likely, but I definitely think it's a scenario that has drastically risen in likelihood with the injury of Chet Holmgren. Now, this would definitely be a big deal for the near future of the Thunder, with how hard it is to replace that kind of scoring production he brings, but not necessarily the long-term outlook, considering in the event of an actual SGA trade, a massive haul would be coming Oklahoma City's way, with him being 24 years old and locked up for the next 5 seasons. The best case scenario is that this current core, SGA, Giddey, Dort, buy into the situation at hand, considering what could be in the making. Chet was going to be a vocal part of this offense. I don't think that's a question. Now we're going to see bigger roles for some of the young talent. For Jalen Williams, the other Jalen Williams, who's now looking at a much bigger role than expected a few days ago, as he's going to absorb a lot of those Chet Holmgren minutes. Bigger roles for Ousmane Dieng, bigger roles for Tre Mann, something that I think could be huge long term, but won't necessarily help them next season. As of right now, it's hard to see many teams that are going to be worse. There's definitely others that are going to be up there, the Rockets, Kings, Pacers, Spurs, Pistons, but I think it's safe to say the Thunder are going to have some of the best odds at the #1 pick following next season. So a year from now, assuming everyone is content with sticking in Oklahoma City for the foreseeable future, here's a scenario they could be looking at. They have SGA and Dort locked up for 4 more seasons, Jang and Williams just 1 year into their rookie contracts, Josh Giddey and Terrence Mann just 2 years in. Solid rotation pieces in JRE locked up for 2 more years and Kenrich Williams for 4, with Chet Holmgren ready to make his highly anticipated debut alongside one of the most hyped up prospects in league history, Victor Wembanyama. Just imagine these two on the court. 2 of the most talented 7-foot+ players in the NBA, 2 guys that both project to be some of the best rim protectors in the NBA, both of which a part of an offense that possibly has the best playmaking backcourt in the league. Scary to think about. Oh, and they also still have 4 first-round picks in 2024, 4 in 2025, and 3 in 2026. Ridiculous. Now again, this is the best case scenario. Chalking them up as the number 1 pick is foolish, just based on how the lottery works nowadays. Even if they have the worst record in the league, they're still going to be tied with 2 other teams for the top odds of the number 1 selection. Tanking isn't nearly as effective as it used to be, but Wembanyama isn't the only player to get excited about in next year's draft. It's definitely guard heavy, which isn't at the top of the Thunder's priority list, but walking away with a Derek Whitehead, Cam Whitmore, Dylan Thompson would still make this team extremely scary on paper, especially if we see some development from this current group. Between Giddey, Trey Mann, Dang, and Jalen Williams, I really think someone's going to break out that really alters the view of the Thunder going forward. Now there's a lot of teams that have similar upside, landing a guy like Wembanyama. The Pistons with Caden Ivey, the Rockets with Green and Jabari, the Magic with Paolo and Franz. But as we mentioned, the difference separating a team like the Thunder is this insane pool of draft picks that's still relatively untouched. The only team that I think will be comparable is the Utah Jazz following the expected Donovan Mitchell trade, but they're going to be starting from scratch. There's a very real scenario where the Thunder have SGA, Dort, Giddey, Chet, and Wembanyama with a similar group of future draft picks, while the Jazz are just starting their rebuild, hoping Obi Toppin and Walker Kessler can be their foundation. We shouldn't brush over how powerful a group of assets like this is going to be the second the Thunder decide the rebuild is over. In the event of someone like Wembanyama coming to town, Presti's not going to sit on his hands. These assets are going to be cashed in. In the blink of an eye, the Thunder are going to go from a team holding the number 1 pick to a team trying to compete for a title. I'm devastated by this Chet injury. I don't think I was more excited to see anyone else this season. It's sad, it's scary, all of that. But it truly might have solidified the plan going into next season, setting them up for one of the craziest scenarios we've ever seen. The only problem I'm starting to get a little bit worried about though is when you build through the draft like this, money can get tight rather quickly. All this great young talent won't be on their rookie deal forever, and given just how improving this roster will be and how small of a market Oklahoma City is, I do think Thunder fans should be slightly concerned about the looming future luxury tax bill, something that destroyed what might have been the league's next dynasty when they traded Harden back in 2012. Now, could this whole scenario have happened even with a Chet injury? Absolutely. But I stand by the fact that this changes everything for them next year. When everyone is healthy, when the Thunder are putting out their best lineup possible, they're not a 24-win team, especially with the addition of Chet. Now that looks to be much more likely, but I want to know your guys' thoughts in the comments below. Do you think this Chet injury has a big effect on their future? If you guys liked the video, smash the like button, smash the subscribe button, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.